Hi guys, this is Dara Joy M. Monreal, and today we are going to discuss the types of tests. Okay, written assessments. These are activities in which the student composes an answer out of a prompt. It may be a brief question, a collection of historical documents, graphs, tables, or a combination of these. Now, we actually have two types of response assessments. The first one is constructed response assessment. From the word constructed, meaning the students have to compose their own answers. It may be in a sentence or in a paragraph form. Examples of this are essays, problem-based scenarios, open-ended questions, like those questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. So therefore, this type of response assessment require higher order thinking skills. We also have the selected response assessment. Compared to the constructed one, this is much more preferred by students like me because we don't have to construct your own answer. We just have to choose among the provided choices. And the first one that belongs to this type of test is the true or false test. I think we are all familiar with this type of test because we have encountered this ever since elementary to high school and even now in college. So obviously, the true or false test contains statements that the students marks as being either true or false. Okay, so question. When or how do we use this type of test? This is good to use when you want to test the student's memory or their comprehension in understanding simple or logic statements. Especially those conditional statements, katong na if of then nga mga sentences. For example, sa math, natay sentence or statement nga, if two angles are vertical, then they are congruent. So to answer that type of statement, the students have to recall their knowledge in that particular topic. Makaingon ta na this type of test really check the students when it comes to their knowledge of facts. However, dili ni siya recommended to test the students' ability to read or interpret complex sentences or understand them because the statements in this true or false test are short sentences usually. This is useful for item analysis, and also the true or false test has the ability to include the most test items in a time frame, so that increases its reliability. Now let's move on to the test instructions. We actually have a lot of ways to provide test instructions. Right here I have an example. If the statement agrees with the information, ang true kay naa sa left side. And if the statement contradicts the information, ang false kay naa put sa left side. There are other ways like circle or write true or false, or write T if the statement is true, or F if the statement is false. Or if the statement is false, provide the correct answer. Okay, now these are the ideal test items. Make sure to use simple, direct language in declarative sentences. Statements must be absolute without qualification, and there must be a contrast between true and false sentences. Also, make sure that we do not directly quote the sentence because it may subject to copyright. I have an example here of a true or false statement. All coconut palms require partial shade to full sun and well-drained soil. After providing proper care, a coconut will germinate in 3 to 6 months. So that sentence is very long and it may burden the students. Compared to the paraphrase sentence, coconut seeds need shade in order to germinate. As you can see, it is more direct and simple. It is easier to understand in the part of the students. Next is present the correct part of the statement first. Take a look at the example here. John P.J. made some revolutionary discoveries about child behavior during the 19th century. As we observe, the blue sentence underlined is the true sentence, which is presented first, and the false one is during the 19th century, which is presented last. In developing a question with a qualifier, negative or absolute word, substitute or experiment with variations to find the best phrase and assessment. Qualifier words ay katong some, occasionally, sometimes, most. So, kung mag-develop ka question nga na, you have to find the best phrase or mga variations nga mo apply. You also have to write out essential content statements. Make true and false statements equal in length. Equal in length, not necessarily nga imong i-measure every sentences. And you also have to group questions by content. Here, I have other examples. These sentences are very simple, just enough to provide information. Okay, these are the rules. Do not give a hint in the body of the question, because what's the point of giving a question, right? And then avoid using the words always, never, often, such qualifiers. Then avoid long sentences because these tend to be true, and trick statements because it may promote confusion. Again, if you get statements from reference materials, make sure to paraphrase. Do not quote. To summarize all of this, you just have to be relevant in giving statements. Make sure that you have mentioned that in your lesson. And if you have to include negative words in your statements, apply emphasis like capitalize, bold words, or italicize, such indicators. So here are the advantages and disadvantages of true or false tests. Now we have the multiple choice test. Compared to true or false, this is more difficult because it takes 3 or 4 options. It really tests the knowledge of the students. This is also commonly used in entrance exams and even in standardized tests. The parts of a multiple choice test is the stem. It identifies the question, and the option is the lettered responses. It only has one correct answer, and the other remaining options are called foils or distractors. This is how we construct a multiple choice test. State the problem in the stem. As you can see in the poor example, there is no stem. It is directly stated multiple choice items, then there we have the options. Compared to the other one, there is a stem. What are the components of a multiple choice items? Then to be followed by the options. This is how it must be constructed. Second is, do not use unfamiliar words, terms, or phrases. This is the same sa katong true or false test. Be relevant in giving questions or statements. Do not use modifiers that are unclear, such much, often, usually, some. It is very confusing. Next is avoid complex or awkward word arrangements. Here we have an example. Signing into law the K-12 program in the Philippines. Who approved it? It is very awkward. Compared to the paraphrase one, who approved the K-12 curriculum in the Philippines? Now it is much simpler and direct. Lastly, do not use negatives or double negatives. I think this is mentioned in true or false tests. Here we have a lot of examples. Okay, which one of the following is not a safe driving practice on icy roads? Not is a negative word. If we paraphrase it like this, all the following are safe driving practices on icy roads except, then followed by the options. You can notice that the word except is emphasized by italicizing and capitalizing it. That's all for my report. the next reporters will be continuing the discussion. I really hope you learned something. Thank you so much.